Okay, let's just dive right in. Imagine two people, same age, same neighborhood, same slightly beat-up car in the driveway. One of them opens their investment app, sees $300,000, and just breathes a sigh of relief. The other person opens the exact same app, sees the exact same number, and their stomach just drops. It feels like absolutely nothing. So what is going on here? That's the paradox we're going to break down.
And here's the real kicker. These two people, they could be the very same person just on two different days of the week. That number, $300,000, can create completely opposite feelings. Now, today, we're not going to talk about how to get to that number. We're going to talk about what that number actually means in today's world and why the feeling it gives you, well, it might be one of the most important financial questions you can ever ask yourself.
So to get to the bottom of this, let's invent the couple. We'll call them Marcus and Diane. They're 43, they've been doing all the right things, saving, investing, and their net worth just ticked over that $300,000 mark. Marcus wanted to pop a bottle of champagne, but Diane said, hold on, let's figure out what this actually means first. Well, spoiler alert, Diane was on to something. Let's find out why.
Okay, so first things first, let's get some perspective. Having $300,000 puts Marcus and Diane ahead of roughly 60% of all American households. So, objectively, on paper, they're doing pretty well. But as we all know, in this economy, how things look on paper and how they actually feel can be two totally different worlds.
I mean, look, their net worth is way above the median, which is sitting around $193,000. So why the anxiety? Well, it's because the amount of wealth concentrated at the very, very top is so extreme now that it completely throws off the curve for everybody else. The top 10% of households, they control 67% of all the wealth in the U.S. When that's the ocean you're swimming in, your 300 grand can feel less like a fortune and more like a rounding error.
All right, let's get into the first big culprit behind this feeling. Inflation. You know, inflation is kind of like having a silent, invisible roommate who's constantly stealing a little bit of your money every single day. You don't see it happen, but man, you feel the impact.
So get this, over the last decade, from 2016 to 2026, the total cumulative inflation has been about 35%. That means the cost of, well, basically everything has jumped by more than a third. So what does that actually do to the power of the money you've saved?
And this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? On paper, Marcus and Diane haven't lost a single dime. But in terms of what they can actually buy, their savings are worth about 26% less than they look. Their money just doesn't stretch as far because the economy quietly jacked up the price of everything while the number in their account didn't change. And oh, it gets so much worse when you dig into the specifics. The big ticket items, the stuff that really defines a middle-class life, have completely skyrocketed, way past that general inflation number. Median home prices up a staggering 77%. Health insurance for a family up 49%. So when Marcus feels like his savings should be worth more, it's because they literally, mathematically, used to be worth more.
Okay, so we know inflation's taken a huge bite. But hey, they still have $300,000 on paper, right? It's all there. They can get to it if they need it. Well, not so fast. This is where we run into the next piece of this puzzle. The huge difference between wealth on paper and actual cash in your hand.
See, for most homeowners like Marcus and Diane, a giant chunk of their net worth isn't sitting in a bank account. It's literally trapped inside the walls of their house. The data shows that home equity makes up about 68% of the median household's net worth, and you can't exactly pay for groceries with your drywall.
So, if we do the math for them, that means their actual liquid, spendable, oh crap, the car broke down money is closer to $96,000. Now look, that is a meaningful amount of cash, but it feels a heck of a lot different than $300,000, doesn't it? You're not broke, you're house rich, and cash moderate. And that creates a very special kind of anxiety every time the furnace makes a funny noise.
And now we get to the question that really keeps people up at night. What happens when you stop working? What can this money actually generate for you to live on? This, my friends, is where the rubber meets the road. And the numbers, well, they can be pretty shocking.
So in finance, there's this old rule of thumb called the 4% rule. The basic idea is you can safely pull out 4% of your portfolio every year in retirement, and you probably won't run out of money. It's a standard starting point. So let's run the numbers on that $300,000.
Okay, deep breath. 4% of $300,000 is $12,000 a year. That's it. That is the amount of money their entire nest egg would give them to live on for one full year.
But let's break that down even more.
That's $1,000 a month. $1,000 to cover your mortgage, your food, your health care, your gas, absolutely everything. You can already feel how tight that is. But let's put that number in an even starker context.
And here it is, the gut punch. That $12,000 a year is actually below the federal poverty line, and it is a tiny, tiny fraction of what the average retired household actually spends, which is over 61 grand a year. So after decades of doing everything right, the math lands them at a level that qualifies for government aid. That is a brutal, brutal reality check.
Okay, I know. That was really bleak. This whole thing has been kind of a downer so far, but this is where the story pivots. This is where everything changes. Because while $300,000 isn't enough to retire on today, it represents something unbelievably powerful when you combine it with one secret ingredient: time. We have to talk about this amazing concept called critical mass. This is the magical tipping point where your money officially starts working harder than you do. Think about it. At a 7% return, a $300,000 portfolio generates $21,000 a year all by itself. If you're only saving, say, $15,000 a year from your job, your portfolio is now officially out-earning your savings rate. That is the game changer. For a lot of people, $300,000 is right where that magic starts to happen. And just look at what happens next. This is the power of compounding in action. Assuming a pretty standard 7% real return, that $300,000 becomes nearly $600,000 in 10 years, and over $1.1 million in 20 years. And I really want you to hear this. That's without Marcus and Diane adding one single extra dollar. That's not a typo. That is just the raw, mind-bending power of compound interest.
So let's bring this all home. The reason $300,000 can feel like nothing isn't because you're crazy or because you're bad with money. It's because you are trying to navigate a genuinely strange and difficult economic time, and that anxiety you feel, it's actually a pretty rational response.
In fact, there's a name for this. It's called money dysmorphia. It's that feeling of being financially insecure even when the objective numbers say you're doing okay. We've basically built an economy where having money and feeling like you have money are two completely separate, unrelated experiences.
And trust me, this feeling is everywhere. Just look at this. People now say they need over $800,000 just to feel financially comfortable and more than $2 million to feel wealthy. With social media turning lifestyle comparison into a full contact sport, we've all kind of hallucinated a standard of living that is just mathematically impossible for most people to ever reach.
So here's the bottom line. The problem was never the number itself. The problem is that no one ever really explains what that number is actually measuring. A $300,000 net worth isn't a $300,000 pile of cash you can go swimming in. It's a snapshot of your progress on a very long journey, a journey where the rules of inflation have been working against you.
But understanding that difference, that changes everything. It changes how you see your own progress. Because